there, fantasy owners. Welcome to Lift the Cup Fantasy or LTC Fantasy. We'll continue rolling out some 21-22 team reviews here. We're going to look at the Colorado Avalanche. Man, they had a good season. Take a look at who led them in different stats for goalies, defensemen, and forwards. Who was their biggest fantasy surprise? Who's their biggest fantasy disappointment? And who on their roster was relevant on a weekly basis fantasy-wise? We'll continue rolling team reviews out a few times a week, because what better way to spend the fantasy offseason than watching some playoffs and talking a little bit of fantasy hockey. Don't forget to subscribe. That way you can catch your favorite team's review. Maybe you want to catch your rivals' review. Maybe a team you just overlooked and don't really think of fantasy-wise. Or check and see if there's any fantasy surprises on some rosters that you didn't know about. If you do subscribe, they'll be a lot easier to find for you. And we'll jump right into it. Goalie Stats. Who led them in games played was Darcy Kuemper. He had 57 games played this season. He also led them in wins at 37. Goals against average at 254. And he swept the slate. Also led them in save percentage at 921. Kuemper really did have a good season in Colorado. He filled in admirably for Grubauer that departed over to Seattle there. You knew he had a good team in front of him, so he's definitely going to rack up a lot of wins, and he definitely didn't disappoint. D-men for him, kind of the Cale Makar show here. He led him in goals, 28 goals for a defenseman. Damn near hit the 30-goal mark, which is huge for a D-man. Also led him in assists at 58 and points at 86. Devin Taves led him in plus-minus at plus 52. Josh Manson, newly acquired, led him in hits at 179. And Eric Johnson led him in blocks at 136. And no surprise, Cale Makar led him in shots on goal at 240. Cale Makar had a really good season, no surprise there. He's young, he can do everything, skates like the wind. Kind of overshadowed. Devin Taves had a really good fantasy season too, but he didn't lead in any categories, but he was definitely relevant fantasy-wise most of the season. He had 51 points in 68 games played. Forward stats, Mikko Rantanen led him in goals at 36. Nazim Cadre led him in assists at 59 assists. Points was Rantanen. He had 92 points. He also led him in plus-minus at plus 35. Hits was Nick Abe-Kubel at 140. Blocks was Logan O'Connor at 59 blocks. And shots on goal was Nathan McKinnon at 299 shots. One shot shy of the 300 mark there for him. It was obviously a deadly offensive team there. They scored a lot of goals this season. McKinnon, he had 88 points in 65 games played, so he was short on the total points for the team in forwards, where Rantanen had 92, squeaked it out, but he also played 75 games, played 10 more games and 4 more points. Biggest fantasy disappointment for me? It's kind of hard when they had such a strong season this year. But if I had to pick somebody, it was probably Samuel Gerard. He's a really good defenseman, a lot of talent there, but he only put up 28 points in 67 games. And you're really expecting to see a little bit more for him, especially since when he was dressed or not hurt, he was on that second power play unit. And being under half a point per game on that kind of roster around you, you wanted more. Biggest fantasy surprise has to be Nazim Cadre. He had a really good season. You could pick Devin Taves in there, but I'm going to pick Cadre. His career best was 61 points in 82 games prior to this season. And this year he put up 87 points, so eclipsed it by 26 and only played 71 games. That's 26 best in 11 fewer games. Definitely a surprise. Fantasy relevant on a weekly basis? Obviously, McKinnon and Rantanen. You got Landeskog in there. Cadre had a really good season. I would include Makar, Kuemper, Devin Taves. There's a lot of selection there. They're obviously going to get eaten up in your upcoming draft for next season, but there's a lot of good options there. couple of streamers that would work out for you because they ride shotgun a lot of the times on the line, but I'd put them more in the streamer than fantasy relevant on a weekly basis, was Andrei Burakovsky and Valery Nichushkin. Really do hope you did enjoy today's episode. We'll be out in a few days with another one. If you did like it, please remember to hit like, hit subscribe, and remember that notification bell. And enjoy the playoffs, fantasy owners.